How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. It is Thursday here on the show, and that means in about an hour and a half, we're going to have AEW NXT ratings for the week. What did you think of the two shows last night? Both shows live, no show from the boat. Obviously, NXT is building towards NXT TakeOver Portland, where, in fact, Tommaso Ciampa is going to be getting a shot against Adam Cole for the NXT title. And obviously, AEW building to their pay-per-view at the end of this month as well. Thoughts on those two shows? You're welcome to give us a call here today on that or anything that is on your mind. 1-800-878-PLAY. That is 1-800-878-PLAY. Toll-free number, 1-800-878-7529. You could text 425-780-7566. My email, Bryan@WrestlingObserver.com, or you can tweet me at Bryan Alvarez. Unfortunately, some sad news here today. Jose Christian Alvarado Ruiz, best known as Maximo, former CMLL World Heavyweight Champion, and a star exotico, reportedly suffered a heart attack earlier today. Alvarado, 39, the son of the legendary Super Porky, Brazo de Plata, was admitted to a private hospital earlier today. The reports are he has recovered and is in stable condition while still under observation. He will remain in the hospital resting for at least 24 hours. Super Luchas reported the story earlier today. Started wrestling in 2000, became a regular with CMLL 3 years later, became a star as the Exotico Maximo. For some reason, Siri was very interested here in this story. Wearing a toga-type outfit in pink, career hit his peak in 2015. He defeated El Terrible to win the CMLL heavyweight title. But in 2017, footage shown of a number of members of the Alvarado family destroying Ultimo Guerrero's car at the private Arena Mexico parking lot. They fired Maximo, stripped him of his title. Back in a moment with Mike Sempervive and more Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Something that we did not mention last night on the Observer Radio Show when we were running down the AEW and NXT shows was, as Timothy here notes, the fact that NXT did not have an overrun last night. And I don't know if that's permanent. Obviously, I think they were followed by the new season of Miz and Mrs., and so it may be throughout the entire Miz and Mrs. season, there's no overrun. Or maybe it was just the first week, like they wanted everybody who normally switches over to switch over and see Miz and Mrs. or something like that after AEW went off the air. But here's the deal. That NXT overrun, first off, I just mean this selfishly. We do not need an overrun for NXT. There's enough product out there. 2 hours, totally fine. That's more than enough. But they were doing the overrun. And the overrun was, in fact, a big benefit for NXT. Because what happened was, there's not a whole bunch of people that switch back and forth between AEW and NXT. Most people, it's 2020. They DVR one show, they watch the other, if they're fans of both. And so the DVR numbers for NXT are strong. The DVR numbers for AEW are huge. You all right over there?
Yeah, having camera issues. Sorry.
So anyway, as I was saying here, DVR numbers are big. So there are about, I'd say, 150,000 people, depends on the week, 150 to 200,000, that do only watch one show or the other. And so what happens is every Wednesday at 11 o'clock when AEW goes off the air, a whole bunch of people switch to see what happens at the end of NXT. And so when you see the AEW versus NXT numbers every week, that NXT number is, I don't want to say artificially high, but the NXT number, the overrun gives them viewership that they did not have during the head-to-head 2 hours. So the point of all of this is, because there was no overrun this week, all those people that normally switched to NXT when AEW is off the air, they switched to nothing. They switched to Miz and Mrs. So whatever the NXT number is, it's going to be down from what it normally is. And in theory, this is going to hurt the NXT number every single week, okay? In theory. Now, We'll see what happens. But you could also say in theory that the fact that there's no NXT overrun, maybe those fans that normally switch back and forth, maybe this will actually hurt AEW some weeks, because if NXT has a stronger main event, those fans will have to switch during AEW and not after AEW. So I guess we'll find out what everybody's viewership patterns end up being, but because nobody knew there wasn't going to be an overrun tonight, I'm pretty sure that the NXT number is ultimately going to suffer from having no overrun. And if the overrun continues to... if there continues to be no overrun, I guess we'll find out what happens as far as viewership patterns. But this could change the way that people watch these two shows. Or it won't. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, in the age of the DVR, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily matters. And I know it matters for us the day after. I know it matters on your Twitter the day after, as soon as you put those numbers up.
Man.
But I don't.
Wait till
I don't
105.
Know if, and obviously there's a peeing contest going on here, so it does matter somewhat. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, I'm not. We'll have to see how it goes, and we'll have to, number one, it's got to disappear for good. But if it is going away for good, we'll just have to see how it goes. And I think it just is going to, in some ways, benefit the fan, because if they are going head up against each other, and NXT doesn't have that overrun, and they both know that, that last segment, just like the opening segment, should be, as important as anything else on the show. In fact, it should be the most important thing, how you go off the air. So, well, I just have to see how it goes.
So this person here says, I think Dave on Twitter just mentioned no more overruns for NXT was a USA Network decision. They thought it would hurt the Miz and Mrs. ratings. So if that's the case, I mean, for this season of Miz and Mrs., there will be no overrun. And when the season ends, maybe they'll go back to having the overrun again. But for now, I guess it'll be very interesting to see the numbers over the next couple of weeks once the fans that do switch back and forth find out there's no overrun.
I'd like to know what the philosophy is on that. If you are getting such a spike that comes over because of the overrun, you would think, in theory, that you would like to keep those people there. So I wonder what the decision making is, and if it's a demographic issue where they want people who aren't wrestling, and obviously they would want that anyway for a reality show like that, but if they are concerned that those people who turn it on are immediately going to turn it back off again because they don't see Maurice there, or they don't see a canned reality show kind of scene, if that's what the concern is, because otherwise it's kind of a surprise they would want it to go away when they know they're getting that spike of viewers that comes over, and that last
I'll tell you why
they do is so important.
I'll tell you why. Ms. and Mrs. last year, on an average night, did over 1 million viewers. Well, so NXT on an average night lately is doing about 700,000 viewers. So yes, there is concern that people are going to switch over to watch Miz and Mrs., and they don't see it, and so they don't watch it. Miz and Mrs. is the more valuable property right now in terms of viewership. And Miz and Mrs. does, in fact, attract viewers who aren't fans of pro wrestling. It does attract reality show fans. So that would be why they want to get NXT off the air, to make way for the show that actually does over 1 million viewers.
How did they air that show? Because I'm honestly ignorant on it. I can't recall last year. Did they always kind of run like old WWE programming, like old Miz and Mrs. before a debut episode? Or how did that work when it stood on its own and did the million plus?
It was Tuesday at 10 o'clock, so I don't know what the lead-in was. But if anybody knows, let us know. So Mike didn't see NXT last night, but he did see AEW. The NXT show, there was some very good wrestling on the show. Trent Seven, Finn Balor, I absolutely loved that match. If you like big moves, Damian Priest and Dominik Dijakovic was a lot of fun. I can't say it was like a great traditional pro wrestling match, because there was a middle rope reverse Frankensteiner that wasn't a finish that led immediately to the other guy winning. So it was all about a bunch of big moves by big dudes.
Have we seen this match in ROH before? Like, was it typical of their fare of like those two guys doing their big athletic stuff that they usually do, like Dominic will do with Keith Lee?
I don't know, but we've seen them do this on NXT. This is what they do. The Tegan Nox Dakota Kai match, their big battle, that yesterday I said I had no interest in seeing because of how they botched the storyline. these two get in here and they beat the hell out of each other. I thought this match was great. It didn't go a long time. It was just this brutal battle. I thought they killed each other. There was one spot where Dakota went into the post, and, dude, I don't know how she didn't kill herself going to this post. And then Tegan whacked her like right in the head with this knee brace, and then pinned her. They're probably going to keep going, but, man, this was great. And then the main event, Riddle and Dunn versus the Grizzled Young Vets, main event of the Dusty Classic. I actually thought the opening match with Mustache Mountain was a better match. And I remember saying at the time, like, this may as well have been the final, because I don't know how anyone's going to have a better match than this. And nobody did, but they've got a plan. So Riddle and Dunn won, and now they are getting a championship match against Undisputed Era at the TakeOver Portland show. So as far as good wrestling, I mean, there was some great stuff on the NXT show. And then the AEW show was fun. As always, it was more of a professional wrestling show than NXT was, in regards to building up angles and such for their pay-per-view. They had the Butcher and the Blade versus the Young Bucks, where MJF wants to pay off the Butcher and the Blade to kill the Young Bucks because the Young Bucks threw him into a swimming pool and he can't swim. That's the storyline. So that was great. But the Young Bucks won, and they're setting up an 8-man for next week. We had this amazing professional wrestling match with Cody and Kip Sabian, with like a million wacky things happening in the middle of this match. It all made sense. It all played into all of their storylines. I loved that match. The Britt Baker promo, I will fight anybody that thought this promo sucked. This promo was great. And then, of course, in the main event, Private Party, Darby Allin versus Jericho, and Proud and Powerful. We could talk about that and more after the break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. If you want to give us a call here today, 1-800-878-PLAY, 1-800-878-7529. Going to go to the phones here in a moment. The phone lines are flooded with new listeners today based on texts and emails and calls. This person here says, Brian, the lead-in for Miz and Mrs. on Tuesday was SmackDown on USA. Well, that'd be a pretty good lead-in. He used to do 2 million average every week. So, obviously, we're going from a 2 million average lead-in to a 700,000 average lead-in. So, they don't want that overrun. So, there's your answer. Jaime, my man, you're on the air. What's going on?
The Miz has been winning the Wednesday Night War? Good God.
Well, it's not on Wednesday.
Well, wasn't that the reason there wasn't an overrun on NXT?
Well, there is now. We'll find out if... We don't even know how that show did. Well, I'll give the Miz and Mrs. numbers later. We'll see if they beat NXT.
You guys missed an important detail on Observer Radio. When you guys were talking about the promo with Kenny Omega and Adam Page with the Young Bucks, yes, I do agree. It's great that Adam Page is a babyface and he should stay a babyface. But there was a detail where he told the Young Bucks, yeah, look, they made the nameplates for everyone in the company. I'm going to hand you guys yours since I don't think they're going to need them. So he's basically dissing them like, you guys aren't going to become the champions.
Well, yeah, I want to thank you very much for the call, Jaime. I mean, the point was, like, take these, you may need them someday, but I didn't read into it the same way that you did, but I hadn't even thought of that before. Now we have to do ratings for AEW, NXT, and Miz and Mrs., even though Miz and Mrs. is not head-to-head. My God, can you imagine if Miz and Mrs. did in fact win the Wednesday Night Wars every week? Which they very well could, because they've got a wrestling audience and a casual audience watching that show. Or maybe, because they're following NXT, they won't do 1 million viewers. I guess we'll see. This will be very interesting. Now I'm fascinated. Just after 1 o'clock, everybody.
I got to be honest, I'm already fast-forwarding to what the Bellas do, being a week and a half apart, when they start filming all that stuff. And I wonder, with what is on USA, and obviously they've had their issues with original programming, I can imagine how much a total Bellas with both of them pregnant, both seasons, the lead up to them probably being announced that they're pregnant, and the brand new season as they go through their pregnancy together. I can only imagine how much they're going to pour behind that show and those two.
Let's go to Tony in Philly. What's going on? Tony, you're on the air. What's happening?
Yo, Brian. I got an idea for you. So do you know what was announced this month for WrestleMania weekend?
What was announced this month for WrestleMania weekend? Well, there was a lot of things.
Yeah, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 3.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you this idea for free. Let's make it happen. Bryan Alvarez versus Filthy Tom. 3 years in the making.
Tom is my good friend, and I will not be facing him in Bloodsport.
Remember, though, you are a professional.
He would also kill me, so there's that.
Real quick, though, I wanted to talk about NXT and AEW. Normally I'm off on Wednesdays, but I was working, and I work at a video hub where I'm able to watch multiple TVs, so I watch them side to side. Not the most ideal way to watch it, but after watching it, I honestly thought that NXT had the better show. I feel like the Dusty Cup Finals was a great match. I think it topped anything on AEW and NXT TV. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And one final thing is, the Super Bowl is on Sunday. Why are they not doing halftime heat again? I thought that was a great idea. That was good to draw in viewers, and I thought the match they put on was a great match.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the call, and I cannot answer the question as to why they're not doing halftime heat. I had heard that they were discussing the idea of a halftime heat. This was a while ago. And with SmackDown now on Fox, I mean, I don't know. It seems like it would have been a good idea, but I guess they're not doing it this year. So, as far as the quality of the two shows, you must wait until tonight's Bryan and Vinny show when we do our official tally of which show we thought won the war last night. But I did enjoy both of those shows. So how's that for an answer there?
Doesn't Fox have the Super Bowl?
Yeah, of course.
Then there's your answer.
Well, the point is, they have the Super Bowl and they have SmackDown, so...
But then why on God's earth would they ever put a halftime heat on anything that would take away anything from the halftime show that they are paying $1 gazillion for and Pepsi's paying $1 gazillion for? Next year, if it's got to be,
it's got to be part of that halftime show.
No. You don't. No offense to wrestling. I love wrestling, but let's. Come on.
We do the halftime show and you have a ring in the foreground. And guys are just wrestling in there while they do their halftime
That's
show.
What look, they have a 97-hour pre-show. That's where you put that. That's where you want to pimp your shows, including SmackDown being one of them, your properties. Okay, to do that with the Super Bowl is just like, I know you don't like sports, but that's just absolute utter insanity. And to put it on another property that would take eyeballs away, if you put it on FX. No, I mean, it's just lunacy to me.
Spurs says, why did Ortiz get rid of the afro he was sporting the past few weeks? I was sad to not see him again as a second coming of Pampero Firpo. Definitely the breakout star of his team, like Otis and Heavy Machinery.
Dude.
I can't answer any questions about Ortiz's hair, but I can tell you this. I got my hair braided, and I took it out a week later. Maybe Ortiz decided he wanted to get his hair braided, and then he took it out. He'll take it out next week. I don't know. I mean, maybe someone there is going to say, dude, bring the afro back, buddy. That afro was awesome. Maybe he likes having his hair braided, but he decided he was going to go all Pampero Firpo when Pampero Firpo died. I don't have an answer for you. But you know what? Hair or no hair, Ortiz is awesome. So I don't care what he does with his hair, as long as he's out there being awesome every week. It wasn't until I went on the boat that I really watched Ortiz. I was like, my God, this guy is great. He's so great. So... anyway, big fan of this Ortiz fella. Christopher in Connecticut, you're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Brian. I have a few comments and then I had a question for you. First of all, on just the Rumble, since I haven't had a chance to
Your phone's terrible. Get in there close, buddy.
I thought that the Rumble was like what the Royal Rumble is. It was basically perfect, especially with the story of the match being... Drew McIntyre and Edge. It was especially good in hindsight because in Edge's second to last pay-per-view match, it was actually an elimination chamber where he won with McIntyre getting his only world title shot in that chamber. And then on what you were saying last night about Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns being at the Super Bowl thing.
Yeah, I heard all about it today.
Okay. So, and don't know if anyone's commented on the Booker T comment you buried about it being the longest Rumble actually did make sense.
No, it didn't.
Because there's like 20 minutes after the 30th.
No, my friend Christopher, thank you very much for the call. I hate to knock you off the line, but dude, listen. There have been 2 Royal Rumbles that were 30 minutes. Do you understand what I'm saying? So with 90-second intervals, the absolute minimum, if number 30 got in that Royal Rumble and Brock threw him out in 1 second, it's still 45 minutes and 1 second.
They don't do 90-second intervals.
There's 2 Royal Rumbles that went 30 minutes. And Mike, listen, I love you, but when they fudge the time, they always fudge it long. They never fudge it short. I time these. If the interval hits 90 seconds, but they're still running spots, they wait until they're done running spots. Then they hit the clock. But they never go, oh, let's hit this clock at 40 seconds after the last one. I don't think, Tom and I watched every single solitary Royal Rumble. I don't think there has ever been one single instance where they fudge the time low, but they always fudge it high. So it's impossible that this would have been the shortest Royal Rumble ever. Not to mention, everybody's ignoring the fact that when I saw it, if you listen to the way that Booker T said it, the guy was trying to say that Brock was throwing people out so fast that the Rumble was going to be over in like a few minutes. Ignoring the fact that the intervals count down no matter how fast somebody gets thrown out. I can't even believe I'm still arguing about this.
You change the rules whenever they want to. It's
up, not down.
No.
Never. Not one time, Mike. If you find one instance where they fudge the time lower, I'll say, you know what? You're right.
Don't move the goalpost. The whole
That's
point
not
was
moving the
they
goalpost.
could.
You're
They
moving the
could
goalpost
if
by
they
saying they
wanted.
could. You know what else they could do? They could put the ring upside down. They could have everyone fight to get on top of an upside down ring. Yeah, they could do that. But you know what? They're not going to do that.
You don't know that at this point.
I know that. This person says, actually, it would be 43-31 because 1 and 2 started 0. You're right. That's still more than 30 minutes.
Like I said, everybody can go back and listen to the original thing. What was it, on Monday about this? If they wanted to, they could.
Dude, if they wanted to, they could try to do a Super Bowl halftime heat with wrestling. But you know what? They're not gonna, right? But they could.
That wasn't, see?
I'm not going to sit there and argue that because they could. You know what else they could do?
Monday.
They could run a Super Bowl on the moon. But you know what? They're not gonna. But they could try. Unless you believe they didn't go to the moon.
They can't afford that.
By the way, Luchasaurus is at Defy on Friday. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Want to apologize to Christopher. Sent me into a rage. This Royal Rumble question. But on a happy note, this person here says, I was at the Dynamite taping last night. Actually, it was my 6th AEW live event. I thought the Cody Kip match was awesome, even though it was full of gimmicks. The dark match with Spears was equally full of gimmicks, but I thought that was just as awesome and super fun. Let me tell you something, everyone, and we all know this, if we really look deep down into our hearts. Why did we ever get interested in pro wrestling in the first place? Why did we ever become fans? I'll tell you why. Because it was fun. Do you hear me, Mike? Because it was fun. And you know what? That match last night, that wasn't like a technical classic. It wasn't the dusty classic finale. But I'm telling you something. Maybe I'm the only one. In a year, I'm going to have no idea who won the Dusty Classic without looking it up on Wikipedia. But I will never forget when Penelope Ford and Chris Sabian went to kiss each other, and Joey Janela's head popped up from the front row between them, and they both kissed him, and he smiled, and they freaked out, and he flipped them off. I died. Dude, yes.
You know what, Brian?
It's
a piece
wacky.
of me died too.
But who cares? It was so fun. I just want to have fun watching wrestling.
I get that. And I'm not going to beat this to death. And it's not the most overwhelming thing of the show. But the reality is, I didn't mind that spot. I would not have minded it if he was wrestling somebody else. I didn't think it had to be in a Cody Rhodes match. And I didn't think it fit. And I think to juxtapose that their undercard, wacky little feud we've seen in some ways a zillion times over the years in wrestling, having that with Cody and having the Arn thing in there too, like that to me would have been enough. And I just didn't think it was necessary in that match with those two, with Cody being in the match. If it was Kip Sabian against somebody else, fine. But with the main event guys, it wasn't really that big a fan of them. Now, with that said, did I hate the spot? No. Do I love a good sight gag? Of course. The Otis thing, obviously, I came up with wrestling in the 80s and 90s. We all like sight gags. It's pro wrestling, and it's not just now. It's been for years. But I just thought in that particular match, in that moment, I didn't like that one, no.
Do you know how many times I watch a Attitude Era Raw and Stone Cold Steve Austin, the tippy-top main eventers in the ring, all of a sudden, William Regal's music hits, for example, and he comes down, and his whole role is just to take a pratfall off a Stone Cold Stunner.
Dude,
it didn't hurt Austin one bit. It never hurt Rock to being involved in these goofy things. It was a wacky comedy thing, and then you know what happened? Cody Rhodes grabbed this dude, and he hit a springboard stunner, and he hit him with his finish, and the place goes crazy. And then he hit him with the finish again, and they went crazier. And then he hit him with the finish the third time, and they went crazy. It didn't hurt this match one bit.
How many times...
Look how much comedy Jericho's involved in.
How many times did Naked Midian run out on Stone Cold? And if he did, would he not have just stunned everybody standing where they were?
I'm sure that would have happened. Probably did happen.
I'm saying.
Didn't make any difference whatsoever. Austin was still Austin. And you know what? Cody is still Cody.
Again, I'm not going to be the fun police on this.
You are the fun police right now. Why don't you tell me about Royal Rumble intervals while you're at it?
Trying to get your heat back on me. You know what I mean? Don't you try to make your comeback on me.
Mike, stop being Jim Cornette light, this person says. That Cody Kid match was so much fun with Arn and Penelope involved, and I love the 3 consecutive Crossroads.
Oh, man.
You know what's funny about that Crossroads? I got to give Cody some credit right here.
You couldn't do it.
I couldn't. No one else can either.
It's true.
Do you watch people try to do this move? He even made fun of it in a promo. He's like, it gets botched on both channels. Dude, Cody hits this move. It looks like the most killer move you've ever seen in your life. It looks so awesome. And everybody else tries it, and it just looks weird. I can't even figure out why it's so hard. I've never even tried it.
But don't you?
Maybe if I face Filthy at Bloodsport, I'll try to hit him with a Crossroads.
Well, we were watching all the old WCWs. Is Reno on there? Didn't he do the roll of the dice? Wasn't that the Crossroads? I thought, had a pretty good one.
I'd have to look. I pay as little attention to Reno. No offense to the guy, but...
Well, yeah, it's understandable.
All right, let's go back to the phones right here. I think Brent in Albany is on the air. Brent, what's going on?
How you doing, guys? I called last week while you were on the cruise, and hope you had fun, by the way.
Boy, did I ever.
Mike and Jim. Talked to Mike and Jim about the heel turn for Britt Baker. And I don't know if you knew this, but they cut to commercial mid-promo, which ruined it for me. But this week was phenomenal.
Yeah, but you know what?
I was so into her promo.
This week played off them cutting to commercial in the middle of it. That actually, in hindsight, it actually made it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she's going to be a great heel. And I would like to see, who do you think she should face as her first match as an official heel?
Oh, man. I want to thank you very much for the call. I don't even know. I'm not even thinking that far ahead. All I'm thinking about is how great that promo was last night. It was so great. And I didn't even notice. Like, I keep seeing the animated GIF on Twitter, but it wasn't until I saw it on the big screen that I realized what Tony Schiavone said when she talked about Starbucks on the boat. I was crying. Such a great reaction. And then she goes out there and she just cuts the best heel promo. And she had good poise. She had good delivery. She had great lines. These fans were furious. And this was a show where, like, this was not an AEW crowd where no matter what they see, they're into it. Like, there was stuff on the show last night. The Nyla Rose match was one. What else was there? The Angelico Jack Evans SCU match was another one where they were just quiet sitting there. Like, they weren't just there to enhance everything in those matches. They were just, like, watching the matches. They got into that CU match at the end. But, man, she cut that promo, and they were furious. It was great.
What helps is, and this is something you and Dave whiffed on last night, Pittsburgh sucks.
How dare you? Anything else?
Pittsburgh sucks. That's what they were chanting because they were in Cleveland, and she's from Pittsburgh.
That's what they were saying.
And football. So that's what that was. Now, I think the only thing was like last week. I thought last week, I mean, for after a match and her being, it's not like she has been doing this for a long time in front of, 5, 6, 7,000 people, whatever it is. So, there is a little bit of a curve there. And I think you have to, with some of these people in different scenarios, in the same way with NXT, I mean, you got to have a little bit of kid glove sometimes. I mean, everybody's kind of learning on the fly here. But I thought her poise after the match was fantastic. And I think the only thing that hurt this week was the same thing that hurt last week was it just goes on for a little bit too long. And it's probably better to chop some of those segments. And one thing I think they ought to be careful with, too, is I'm not saying have one dedicated person and let it be Britt Baker that hammers Tony Schiavone. But I don't think that the fan base, and I don't think that Tony Schiavone, number one, I don't think it's a good idea for the announcer anyway. And number two, I don't think that their fan base and the people that like Tony Schiavone constantly want to see him getting beaten up and being treated like this frumpy piece of trash. And that seems to be what everybody does. Now, somebody I don't want to say criticize for it, but somebody who I think gets long in the tooth with that stuff is MJF. But I thought last night was a great example, and I think the best showcase for MJF so far as his whole overall game being where it is. Now, granted, he had somebody in his ear telling him probably when to talk and when not to talk, but when he did talk last night, it shows you that he is more than just the Don Rickles insult comic. And I think him on commentary, the more you can do that and the more comfortable you make him, just the better it's going to be. Because I think sometimes he does get way too stuck in the one-track thing of just being the constant insult machine when his verbiage and his delivery and everything that comes with it is so much more than that.
Ahmed, you're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, man, what's up? You're definitely gaining momentum.
Thank you.
So, just want to, first of all, thank you guys for the great content, the both content, the Japan content. I encourage everyone to subscribe. You guys are on a roll. One thing I want to mention is that I think AEW has a clear advantage over NXT. It's not the venue, it's not the stars. I think AEW is not afraid of trying things. Is not afraid to think outside the box, and they hear the feedback and they change it. The good example is the commercial breaks. Another good example is the Adam Page. He was hot and he was cold. Now his character is my favorite thing.
Oh, he's the greatest.
On the other hand, NXT, it's very systematic. Like if you have the gift moment from Keith Lee, then they're like, okay, the next match, how to make a gift.
Yes.
So my question is, if you can give an advice to NXT and they will hear you, because I think they should just let loose. Let someone say a promo. Let him screw up. What will happen? You know what I mean? I mean, you got Matt Riddle thrown out within seconds. It can get worse than that. So what will be your advice for NXT? Because I don't think it's the venue anymore. I don't think it's any. I just think they need to let loose.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the call. I mean, they absolutely need to let loose. And this is not just NXT, but it's the main roster. And I won't waste a lot of time on this, but I will mention that DDP's stepdaughter is now doing backstage interviews with AEW, and she's been on AEW Dark, Lexi. And she's been doing this for 3 weeks, and she's already more natural and more of a human being than any of the people asking questions backstage in WWE. That's how overproduced WWE is. I mean, everybody made fun of Pamela Paulshock for the job that she did in WCW, and she was very, very bad, like on week one. But you know what? After a couple of months, Pamela Paulshock was, in fact, better than anybody doing this on the main roster of WWE right now. You know why Pamela Paulshock got that job? Because she was very attractive. Do you know who WWE hires? Actual, real-life, experienced people
who are also attractive.
And somehow, Lexi, who has done this for 2 weeks, and Pamela Paulshock, who had zero experience and did it for 2 months, both of them are better and more realistic doing their job than anybody on the main roster of WWE. NXT, I really like the NXT television show, but it is becoming more and more like the machine every day. The biggest difference between NXT and the main roster is the wrestlers are actually allowed to go out there and do more than they do on the main roster. You watch Finn Balor on NXT last night, that dude was the greatest. He was the greatest last night. And him and Trent Seven tore it up. You never would have seen that on Raw. You never would have seen that on SmackDown. At the very least, at least the wrestlers are getting more freedom in NXT. But everything else about the package, it's total WWE. It's not pro wrestling. It's WWE. Whatever WWE is, sports entertainment, I don't even know what it is. Whatever it is, that's what NXT is. And they would greatly benefit from loosening up all of that. Let these guys try to do promos on their own. Let the backstage interviewers actually ask real logical questions. Let them formulate their own questions. Like you can say, I want you to ask Tommaso Ciampa, like make sure you ask him about his championship match with Adam Cole at the show. But then that's all you tell them. Let them formulate a question and ask the question. And then maybe let them respond to the answer with a follow-up question, and then let the talent, like all of these things, they seem like little things, but I promise you, these things are so important. And that's the one big difference between NXT and AEW. That and the fact that if NXT has a plan, and this is like a positive and a negative, like they stick to their plans, unlike the main roster where things just change on a weekly basis. But sometimes, like with Adam Page, this dude better not turn heel. Whatever they were doing, he is so over as a babyface now. And that's the direction they need to switch to. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Couple of quick news notes. Dave Meltzer reported last night Ronda Rousey not scheduled for this year's WrestleMania in Tampa. According to Meltzer, the direction will be Charlotte Flair using her Rumble-earned title shot to challenge Rhea Ripley, the NXT champion, for the company's biggest show of the year, with Flair becoming more of a presence on NXT TV. That is, of course, unless Bianca Belair wins the title at the upcoming NXT show. And AJ Styles, hopeful to be involved in WrestleMania. He suffered a separated shoulder bumping for Edge, and he basically said that it was not Edge's fault. I wanted to take a killer bump for this guy, and I did, and I separated my own shoulder. So there you go. MVP also announced on Instagram that he's done. The Raw match was his final WWE match. He says the end of his career looms larger every month, but he is not finished wrestling just yet. So those are the quick news notes, and more news will be coming any moment now, because if you follow me on Twitter at Bryan Alvarez, I will have the ratings for Dynamite and NXT up very, very soon. Kaboom! Goes the internet, as always, on Thursday afternoon. So check it out at Bryan Alvarez on Twitter. Appreciate all the new followers here today. We got a lot of stuff up on the front page, so check it out. All sorts of great stuff. There's an Observer Radio from last night. Vinny and I back tonight, reviewing AEW and NXT in great detail, and so much more. So check it out. Thanks, Mike, as always. Callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. Talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live.